Hi, I'm Donna Ritter. I'm the Executive Director and the co-founder of the Educators Consortium for Service Learning. I want to welcome all of you to this very special time that we've carved out to unite together, center ourselves, face some of the issues that we're dealing with, and try and build upon them. Just to let you know that this is actually a reenactment of our May 15th session that we had, conversations that we had, because we want to keep them alive and share them with those of you who couldn't attend. There's an accompanying document that captures much of the conversation, but we're going to provide you with as much as we can. Just to fill you in briefly, the Educators Consortium for Service Learning was created in 1994 following the LA riots, when a few of us realized that we needed to build bridges between communities and people, and young people. The youngest people would have the best opportunities for doing this because they weren't blinded by mountains being too big and too much red tape to cut through. And we wanted to provide a way to empower them. And this was linked to curriculum a lot through the help of Kathy Berger Kay. So ECSL provides inspiration, motivation, networking, resources, and collaborative opportunities, helping educators engage young people in meaningful service learning experiences that generate genuine outcomes. To all of you from around our planet, because there were 18 of us covering the entire globe on this call, a very warm welcome. And to those of you who returned, celebrating conversations, we want to appreciate your returning and taking the time to join us, and welcome to the new people. Your time is more precious than ever, and today we each benefit from each other being present on this call. As traumatic as COVID stay-at-home is, it also offers a pause, a reset for us to invent what can work better, keep us calmer, heal our earth, and appreciate each other. Especially challenging times require looking around and seeing differently, being innovative, and enjoying the reinvention. As Buddha said, as you think, so you shall become. So what are you going to create today? Let's dive in. I'm going to introduce Kathy, I think, who's going to then introduce Johnny, who will start our process today.
Hi, I'm Kathy Berger Kay. I'm based in Los Angeles, but I do travel the globe to bring service learning and social emotional learning to schools all around the world. So it's wonderful to be back home with my cohort here. Before we get to Johnny, Marissa, hi, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Marissa Najarian. I support ECSL after having been in the classroom for 10 years as an elementary educator. My role today will be some support with tech here, and also offering some synopsis of what we see during our breakout room sessions.
Great. And so what we're going to do first is to just do the centering. We call this centering conversations because we think we have to just ground ourselves first before we can connect with others. So we have Johnny here who's going to tell us who he is and lead us through a moment of pause. So thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Johnny Rogers. I'm the Director of Service Learning at Campbell Hall in Los Angeles. And I also teach yoga there, which qualifies me minimally to be able to lead you all through a short breathing exercise to put us in the space, if you will. So find a comfortable seat where you can sit with a centered spine. Imagine that you are trying to root yourself through the base of your spine, and that the top of your spine, your head, is nice and light. It might help you to close your eyes. It's not necessary, but it allows you to focus on the sensation of the breath as it enters and leaves your body. So if you would, with me, inhale through your nose, fill the lungs, and gently exhale through your mouth. Let it go. Again, inhale through the nose. Try to breathe deep into the body if you can, expanding your belly and then your chest. And when it's full, just let it out, nice and easy. On this next inhale, bring as much breath into the body as you can, slowly, gently, until you feel completely full. Hold at the top and then briefly exhale slowly, luxuriously, until every last drop of air is out of your body. Now allow the breath to come easily. Try not to direct it too much. Your body will breathe itself, receiving on the inhale and releasing on the exhale. As you breathe in this relaxed fashion, try to imagine that every inhale, you're bringing light into the base of your spine, and that it rises, spiraling up your spine as your breath fills your body. And at the top of your inhale, that light erupts out of the top of your head and flows gently, gracefully down around you like a fountain of light. This light then returns to the base of your spine as you begin your inhale once again. Inhaling the light up the spine, exhaling and releasing it down around you. Try to feel that breath move up the back of your body and down the front of it. One more time. And let it go. Gently open your eyes, come back into your seat. And now we can begin.
Thank you, Johnny. You know, I once learned how many breaths we take every day. Does anyone know how many breaths we take every day? It's 20,000.
It's quite a few.
Quite a few. So we just did a few with intention, which I think is pretty great. So it's very exciting. When this is our third ECSL gather. Is it the third or the second? The third. And after the first one, we decided to open it up to people around the world. And we've had an amazing response. In this meeting, we had people that came from Los Angeles area, our core group, including people from nonprofit organization Tree People. So we had educators and we had an organization represented. And then we also had people from independent schools in the United States and Syracuse area in New York, and also Virginia, and also public school educators in New York City who came through a connection of service in schools, which is a program of the Department of Education. And they've been studying service learning this year. I've been lucky to be able to go there and work with them until recently. So it was great to have 2 public school educators from New York City. Then we had people from international schools in Malaysia, a woman who teaches in Angola, Angola, who's now in Canada with this change that's going on. And what was really exciting was we had an ECSL educator from Los Angeles who's now teaching in Southern Korea return. And that was just wonderful to see how people move and change and grow around the world. So speaking of this world connection, I want to take a few minutes and share a program that I've launched with a core of my consultants who are based all around the world. And this is a program called Documentar. So I'm going to share my screen, Marissa. Everybody good with that? Okay. You have to enable me to share.
Okay. Let me get you on as a host. Hold on one second.
All right. So what happened was with this pandemic starting, it seemed to me that there's a lot of places that adults can share what's going on for them, but not necessarily places where young people can share what's going on.
So you're able to share now.
I got it. Thank you. There we go. So, and that was the birth of Documentar. So I'm going to take you back a little bit and show you how it evolved and how it even connects back to some of the programs that ECSL has done. We're calling it Documentar, but what is that? What does it mean? It's to document in Spanish is, I guess, the basic thing to let you know. But what we want to create is a time capsule of now where young people can express what's going on in their world, where they are with this epidemic and their experience. So this is an opportunity to share outward to others, but also it comes from looking within. So it helps with this whole social emotional realm that we really want young people to be able to access. It gives them a vehicle to express themselves and others to bear witness. So it's meant to be participants from youth all around the globe who are all experiencing this pandemic together. It's unbelievable that something of such a scale has put us all in a similar place and time. So there were 2 real seeds to this, but it all revolves around this idea of how do we document and really keep track of what's happening in the world. years ago, I met a wonderful woman named Barbara Savone, and she'd done a book with kids in Tanzania called In Our Village, Kambia Simba Through the Eyes of Its Youth. It was a rural, poor community in eastern Tanzania, and these young people wrote a book that was just profound. And based on finding that book and it getting into my hands, I created a partnership with Barbara, who's now become a dear friend, to invite young people from around the world to share their book or story back to these kids in Tanzania who really didn't think other people would care or have any connection with who they are and what they were doing. And ECSL was one of the very first groups to respond, and they created an In Our Village book together. It was quite an experience. I think there are about 8 schools, Donna, you'll have to let me know if that's about right, 8 or 10 schools that participated. And each contributed segments of this book to create the Village of Los Angeles in collaboration. Years later, I met a wonderful woman named Judy Gellis, and she's an artist. And Judy had just completed a photo exhibit with young people. She'd given some boys in an urban school in Philadelphia, middle school students, she got a grant to do this program, 7th grade boys, a camera, and asked them to document through a self-portrait and by taking 4 pictures of what was important in their lives. And I said, Judy, this is amazing. It sounds like if you compiled it together, it would become an In Our Village book telling the story of these young people. And she created 2 of them. One is Respect Yourself, 7th grade boys telling their story in Philadelphia, and Through Their Eyes, 7th grade girls telling their stories in Philadelphia. There are now about 40 books that have been written and that are all accessible as flip books on a website. And these are listed and how to access them in the document that Marissa has shared in the chat room. So Judy also did another program that really was a strong influence in the shaping of Documentar. She traveled the globe taking photographs of 4th graders all around the world. And she would take them from the backs. There was no privacy in revealing who they were by showing their faces. And she would ask each young person where she was in the world. And this was from South Africa to Indian nations of the United States, to China, New York, all kinds of schools and all kinds of places. And one of the questions was, who do you live with? In this case, this boy who was on a Navajo reservation, I believe, talked about his dad and mom speak Indian and English, and we travel to powwows and dance. It tells who we live with. And another question is, what do you wish for? This was taken in South Africa, and this is a boy who wishes to see his father, to be able to fly away to where his father lives. And a girl also here in China, what do you worry about? So she said she has scary dreams at night of her mother disappearing. By giving voice to these young people and putting them together, we get a picture of young people and their experiences. On your website, there's a curriculum so other children can participate in this and make their own. It's an amazing program. About 2 months ago, Judy suddenly passed away, and her passing and this whole epidemic hitting at the same time made me want to take this essence of her work and create a program that would carry on her approach and also access young people around the world. And that was the birth of Documentar. It emphasizes youth voice. So young people of all ages can express themselves in a freestyle manner, just whatever they want to express in any way about how this pandemic is influencing them. And we also provide 4 prompts, a fill in the blanks type of approach. Where are you now? How has your world changed? What worries you? And what keeps you strong? Or just take a shortcut. Take a photograph that represents your life right now and challenge 3 friends to do the same. We encourage young people to submit these through a Google Doc we've set up in on our Instagram account and also Facebook, or you're welcome to contact me directly at Kathy@cbkassociates.com, and I'll send you the information. But we also want them to put it on Instagram if that's possible. And if they do @Documentar_ and hashtag where they're from, then we can get a record of all the expression of young people in LA, New York, or Ghana, or wherever this is taking place. And this is a picture submitted by a 13-year-old boy in New Jersey about his life in this experience of COVID-19. We have a Facebook site, so I hope you will like that and join us, Documentar_, and see how you can participate and be part of this process, because we think it will mean a great deal. So follow us, involve youth that you know, invite them to participate, and share this with your communities you're involved in, and advise us on ways to get the word out. But thank you for listening, and we hope you will take part in Documentar. Yay. So where we're at next is we're going to imagine that we went into our breakout rooms. And in those breakout rooms, what we were talking about are several prompts. Marissa, do you want to share the prompts that we suggested for this breakout room session?
Yes, so we actually decided to follow similarly to what the documentar experience would be for youth. So we decided to use those same questions. So the questions would be, how has your world changed? What worries you? What keeps you strong? And what support and resources do you need to advance service learning for your students and the community? In a few moments, we'll go into the breakout rooms. In each breakout room, there's a host that's familiar with the process that we've adopted, and part of which will be in choosing a scribe, as well as choosing a timekeeper. And we'll toss the floor back and forth to each other as we share out on those questions and then receive feedback. I've placed the chat within I placed the shared document within the chat. This is a living, breathing document. We ask you to populate it with your name, your email, and your location, your school, so that then we can know who was there that day and reconnect with them later if we need to. And there could be additional information that you choose to add today. Of course, along with the scribe, you can add your resources that you've discussed, and you can come back to it anytime. So unless there's any comments from the team here, then we'll go into breakout rooms. And when we pop back on, we'll be sharing out and hearing some synopses of what happened in each of our spaces.
And since we're not actually going to breakout rooms, because this is more of a reenactment and a summary, we'll just hear from our breakout rooms what happened and what was covered. Because the content of these conversations run deep. It may not be a long time, it's about 30 minutes, but it definitely makes an impact. So Donna, you were going to report from what happened in breakout room 1. Could you give us a synopsis?
Yes, I'm happy to. And the conversations are so genuine and they come from the heart. And so there were 3 major points that came up. And again, you have a variety of people from a variety of places in the world. So one is from an administrator who had just recently, 3 months ago, had moved from Colorado to upstate New York and is very dedicated to bringing service learning to her school. But with the shutdown, which happened like 5 or 6 weeks into her administration, everything changed and she has really no resources. And her big concern is that seniors have a sense that they're missing out on this. They're missing so much of their senior year. And she was concerned that that privileged students, it's a private school, need not be pandered to. And that there needs to be refocus on what can they do to make this time more meaningful. How can they look at this historical moment to be proud of something when they then tell their children about what happened at this time when they were seniors to their children who might be seniors. So she was very stumped with how to make this move forward. She didn't have support of staff. She didn't have access to students. And so this was one of the questions she raised, is how we can encourage our students to use this time to do something that's more meaningful. Second person in our group who actually was with Tree People, who does special school enrichment for environmental enrichment in the wilderness and in the trees here. She said as much as they are available and they offer programs, you can't virtually smell a tree or feel a tree or hug a tree. And so she was struggling with the actual virtual gap of what can be done. And so we talked about a number of different opportunities there. And a third person who is from Mexico, her fears are twofold. One is she comes from a very tight family. And as she said, and Lloyd from Tree People also, that Hispanic families are very, very close-knit and you need to touch each other and feel each other. They miss the companionship of being with each other. And there's such a physical retreat that's so painful for them. And that creates a big gap. And the second part of that is that she can't feel her students. They're on a screen. The ones that she can reach are on a screen. Many of them she can't reach because they either don't have computers or they're not available. And she worries about how they're processing this. And when this is over, how are they going to re-engage and manage moving forward with their lives? And lastly, along the lines of reinventing things like virtual trees and hugs, we explored the physical nature of the isolationism that's being created And we came up with a concept of reinventing what a hug is. Maybe students can write poems about hugs, or put a collection of pictures together, or do a dance with hugs. How they can share hugs with grandparents, and just hugging is something to be embraced, pun intended, I guess, at this time. So that was some of the key thoughts that came out of Breakout Group 1. And I'll toss it to Breakout Group 2.
Thank you, Donna. That's really quite amazing. That line of how can we be proud of something that we did in this moment really stood out for me as something really significant. And I don't remember hearing that before, so thank you for sharing that. That's very significant. And also the questions of how we're processing and the lack of physical content really leads me to think these are some areas we're going to really look at our next meeting in 2 weeks. How do we deal with these changes in our lives? Room 2 was very impactful for me personally. One of the teachers who teaches in New York City, a public school teacher, started by saying she had COVID-19. And it was her 8th grade students that she taught throughout the whole time she was ill for 2.5 weeks that got her through it. It was their courage, their resilience, and their support for her. They gave her, helped her actually recover, which is quite impactful for me. She also was talking about when we live in urban environments, it's different. Like in Los Angeles, I live in a home with a house and, front backyard, I have some space. But in New York City, people don't have that kind of space, any kind of urban living. She said that what the students were doing were putting signs in the window about issues that they were working on. When they were working on issues on voting, they'll put a sign in the window, street-facing window. And that was just a real big aha moment for me of how we can communicate. It's not just putting rainbows up. It could be facts, it could be information. She talked a lot about the 8th grade uncertainty. Her students are graduating from middle school, but they have no clue what it'll be like when they go back to school in the fall, whether it be in person, where they will go, who they will know. They won't know anyone. It's just that whole uprooting that young people are going through at these milestones in their life. I thought that was quite something. We also talked about self-care and how important that is for all of us in order to be able to be present for our young people. And one of the women who used to teach in the LA area, now in South Korea, says that it's one of the big wake-up moments for her was the racism that is being experienced towards Chinese people in Korea. That's an issue anyway, but it's even gotten heightened by this pandemic. And she said that she's at a fairly new school. It's only been around for 3 years. And it was the first time they were going to do a food drive, and her first graders or kindergartners were putting it together, and they had to stop it. And she was so disappointed they couldn't see that through. So they're trying to find other ways for young people to be engaged. And they've just gone back to school this week in person. So that's a switch. So South Korea is back in session. So that'll be different. So, and I spoke briefly, again, a little bit about Documentar and about work I'm doing in New York City right now at the New York Police Department to help them learn how to safely and respectfully approach young people. So we all had a moment to share and to give feedback. So I'm going to now toss it to Johnny. You were in room 3. Could you give us a wrap up on what happened there?
Sure thing. We talked about quite a few different things using the 4 questions from Documentar as our guide. And there was a brief moment where we all spoke on the utility and the potential for unification through the Documentar project. So we had some echoes of the worries that were mentioned already about how seniors are dealing with this, and they're sort of being forced to process a loss of this expectation of ceremony that is now disappeared, and how do they regain that, or how do they change that into something else? How do they transform that into a useful experience for them instead of just grieving? And how do we allow space for that grieving process to occur? And let's see, we talked about something that keeps one of our educators strong, a local California educator who works with elementary students, mentioned that the global community, and noticing that even on this very gathering of our ECSL people here, that there is a global community emerging, and that this is something that's connecting everybody, and that there is something to be taken advantage of there. He also spoke about how families are getting to spend more time together. And in a lot of cases, that's actually been helpful for family dynamics. Not all cases, obviously, but he's seeing that. And he's also got kids trying to take this on in a very positive way, which is keeping him strong. One of his young kids asked why we don't have the virus of kindness. And so now they're doing a project where everybody shares a video or a photo of some kind act they are performing in their community right now and trying to spread that virally.
Great.
He was also worried that we would come back from all this closure and that things wouldn't be changed, that things would just go back to normal. And so we talked about that for quite some time, of what was working about normal and what wasn't, and how there are opportunities for us to change systems that really weren't working for a lot of people. And we talked about how kids are often going to want things to go back to normal because that normal was safe for them and normal was good for them, and they might not be motivated to try to make the shifts that would be required to do away with some of the systems that weren't working. So there's a little collective worry around that. Something that one of our educators from Mexico talked about is that not everywhere in the world has a social support system, and that there are a lot of families that she knows in her communities that don't have any way to get support, and so they're leaning on one another, and the closeness of families has become a really big deal in this time, and that she really wanted to highlight and honor that that power of the family and how much that's impacting everybody in different ways around the world, depending on how much of a social safety net they have. We talked about how there are a lot of kids that are responding very imaginatively and in a driven fashion, especially some of the high school kids we're noticing are really trying to take this opportunity to do something and take action, and that we as service learning educators need to leverage that passion and provide them the opportunities to do that. And that is really one of the trickiest sort of sticking points, is how do we provide that opportunity in a time like this? And how do we also keep a balance between providing opportunities and pathways and allowing for the autonomy of our students to encourage that self-starting, to encourage mistakes that provide lessons along the way. And that was, it was fairly meandering in that sense, but it covered a wide range, and we have our worries, we have our fears, but we also have the things that are keeping us strong and the opportunities that are staring us in the face as we move ahead.
The strength of family is really something, and it's so true. Every family is different, different ways they can support, but I hope most people are finding support with their families. It's not guaranteed, but I hope that's true. Room number 4, you weren't there, but you were popping in and out of all of them, Marissa, but we've still given you the go ahead to share what room 4 was about.
Yeah, so room 4 was a nice representation of the wide range of people that came from all over the globe to be there. There was someone from Los Angeles, as a private school here in Los Angeles from our ECSL network. There was a woman who is staying in Canada but working in Angola. There was an educator from Mexico, and there was also a service learning nonprofit representative from Cincinnati, Ohio. So that kind of gives a little bit of the depth of where we are all coming from. And but there, of course, there were still a lot of similar threads of ideas, and the main one from breakout room 4 seemed to be the students. It was the thing that a lot of the people in the room were worried about, and ways that they could connect deeply with the students. And but it was also the thing that gave them inspiration and gave them strength. The educator from Mexico mentioned that he was having students write letters to their future selves. And that was something that the service learning, that Caroline, the service learning nonprofit representative, thought was a great takeaway for her. And it led to an interesting conversation with the group about how that might be something that Documentar could implement, would be implementing a forward-thinking question somewhere within their work. And so those were the main takeaways from room 4, and being able to watch the shared document unfold. From my perspective, not being within a room, one of the things that was really powerful to me was hearing an educator, looking on the sheet and seeing an educator say that Documentar was a way to take the global temperature of youth, and that I really feel that these conversations are an opportunity for us to take the global temperature of where we are as service learning colleagues. And so I encourage everybody to continue to look at the document and read through the entire thing, because there are so many little gleaming resources and connecting points that make this space really valuable. So that's my.
I want to add one little tidbit that I think we did miss. One of the teachers talked about how they had their students, I believe this was middle school students, write letters to their future self. So when Marissa talks about lots of little kernels of wisdom and brilliant ideas, that's why use the document, and there's resources in there along with some thoughts that might bring you some comfort or inspiration as well.
Right.
And
So we covered a lot in a short amount of time. It seems to be always the way in these workshops. I think people really come ready to share, to be present, and to be open and connect. So that's the value. So we do plan to have more meetings, and I think Donna will bring this to a close by sharing what's up for our next meeting, and then Johnny will do a wrap, pull us all together so that we leave with a good breath and a good heart. So Donna, tell us about what's coming up next.
our next meeting, and these have been every other Friday. So the next one is the 29th of May, and we just did extend into June. So the following June, I believe it's June 12th would be the following one. But we're switching to a little bit more of a topic focus, which deals with justice, equity, and liberation. And we're going to be really graced with the presence of an inspiring and erudite and informative and perceptive leader, J. Christopher Neal, who is working in New York. And it's going to be really a dynamic opportunity for us to explore what's called trauma-based learning, and how we can come out of that. So we encourage you to join that. At anybody who's interested, please write ECSL at gmail.com, and we can send you the links to register. And we look forward to having you join us at that time. And with that, I believe I'll turn to Johnny so we can recenter before departing to our busy lives. And thank you for joining us so much, for joining us to hear our thoughts. And hopefully we'll be seeing you on the next one.
All right, everybody. Since we've been sitting and staring at our screens for a while, I like to just open up the shoulders a little bit and mobilize the spine. So again, find yourself rooted with your shoulders directly above your hips. And just take a deep breath and expand your torso, expand your body. And release. And on the next breath, if you can, raise your arms above your head. Maybe look up at your arms, at your hands, pull your fingers back down towards your face. And exhale, let the arms come down to either side gently. Inhale once again, arms overhead. Just do that same motion with the fingers pulling back towards your face, pressing palms towards the sky. And exhale, let the hands go to either side. You can bow your chin to your chest as you exhale. Just let it sit there. Take one more inhale. Exhale once again. Inhale, bring your right ear to your right shoulder. Chin to sky. And then let it exhale as you bring your left ear to your left shoulder and chin to chest. And now go the other way. Inhale, left ear, left shoulder, chin to sky. Exhale, right ear, right shoulder, chin to chest. Inhale, bring the face back into a neutral position. Bring your elbows together if you can, and the palms as well. And then lift your elbows out in front of your chest. If you can't do this, give yourself a hug. And if this is too easy, you don't feel a stretch, you can wrap your arms like this. And then press the elbows together still. Drop your chin to your chest and exhale and lift the elbows as high as they'll go comfortably. You should feel a stretch between your scapula, and then exhale, let it go, let it go, let it go. You can inhale, hands high once again, and then exhale, maybe bring the elbows to either side, sort of cactus the arms and open the chest towards the sky. Inhale, hands overhead one last time. Exhale, hands in front of you at heart center, and we'll really quick just interlace the fingers and roll the wrists out in a figure 8 motion. Gently, gently. And then if you can, back the other way. And that's it. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. So mark your calendars for May 29th. It'll be at 3:00 p.m. Pacific time, and it'll be moving from trauma-based experiences to healing-centered approach with J. Christopher Neal. We'll be looking forward to seeing you. It'll be a wonderful event. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.